Hi, fellow Alaskans. It's David Ritchie here. I'm running for the United States House of Representatives seat here in Alaska, the seat presently held by Nick Begich, who I hope to God is not our representative for very much longer. I wanted to say I got into this race very late, and I got no money. I'm not asking for donations, even. I mean, if somehow I survive to the final four uh, in ranked choice voting, you only get to vote for one in the primary. So I'm hoping that you'll consider voting for me. But I got into this race for two reasons. There's several other things, like I haven't made a video about it. I just learned how to do this, but I want to ban factory trawling among the many things that I'd like to make a video about. But for now, there are two big things. One is I wanted to drag the living shit out of Nick Begich, who richly deserves it, disqualifying himself on four seminal votes. He voted for war with Iran, which is pointless, and we're risking economic ruin, and there's nothing good coming out of it at all. And it was completely unnecessary. There was no imminent threat, and everybody knew that. We did it for Israel, and I think that's widely accepted by the American populace, not in the media, of course, and not in political circles. Very few people are willing to say that. But he voted for merging the United States military with the Israeli military. He just did that recently. It hasn't become law yet. The Senate still has to decide, but I hope to God that doesn't happen. But Nick voted for that. He thinks that's a swell idea. He voted for tariffs, which have caused great pain for Alaskans, and everybody knew it was going to be that except for Trump. And Nick Begich did it because he's a kept man. So higher prices and more pain for all Alaskans. And he voted to cut your health care, which is a form of cruelty, especially when people are counting on it, and especially when there's always plenty of money for war, right? But apparently not for healthcare, and this was before the war, remember? So, and the second reason I got into this race is because there was an issue that I thought that politicians, again, in the online world, this is a raging debate, and people are talking about it, and a lot of people are making legitimate criticisms of the secular government of Israel, and a lot of Zionists are conflating that criticism of the government of Israel with anti-Semitism. I just had that happen to me. I wrote a long piece. I paid for it. Cost me $1,500. I'm just spending my own money and doing what I can. I got into the race late just because I'm so disgusted with everything, and there were certain things I wanted to say, and so Israel is a very big topic for me because I don't think it's generally acknowledged as being as important quite as what it is. But I think when you look at the state of our country and the war that we're in and the economic calamity that might befall us if we continue with this pointless war, I think it's the largest issue that exists in America today. And that's precisely because apparently we're not a sovereign country. I mean, it's true, Trump has agency and he made that choice, but why'd he do it? I mean, what president within a year betrays his own base? Everybody America first, remember that? Trump, no wars, no stupid wars. And then he does a stupid, pointless war within a year. And Marco Rubio admitted it, and so did Trump. They did it for Israel, you know? And so, to me, I mean, you can talk about all sorts of other issues, but this is the largest one. And I felt like in the political realm, people were not talking about this honestly. There's been great strides since my piece, and it's not because of my piece, surely, but I think it's just because a lot of people are noticing and they're willing to gird up their loins and say it, you know? The reason a lot of people are reticent to do so is simply because Zionists, and these are Jews and Christians both, come down on people like a house of bricks, a pile of bricks, I guess is the expression. And people have been reticent to speak out because, like, who needs that kind of smoke? Who needs that kind of shit, you know? And I think what changed is two specific things. It was the genocide in Gaza that Israel conducted and that Joe Biden couldn't be bothered to do anything meaningful to stop. Either he couldn't do it or he chose not to. I don't know whether he condoned it or whether he was powerless to stop it. Again, it makes the question of American sovereignty. Why is the Israeli lobby and the Israeli government so influential that an American president, one, will condone a genocide, and two, will go to war on behalf of and at the behest of Israel, who is now washing their hands of it. It's like, Iran's your problem, right? So this is something that I think we need to talk about. And so I wrote a piece, and it appeared over a month ago, on June 12th in the Sitka Sentinel. And again, I paid for it. It cost $1,500. And it's quite long, and I'm going to read it. And so what I want to say is, if you want to just read it yourself, I mean, one thing I suggest, if you want to listen along, you can just treat it like a podcast, because I'm not going to do anything interesting. In fact, I won't be able to look at the camera because I'll be reading it a lot. So if you want to put it on the background and you're working on something or whatever, I mean, just like treat it like a podcast and give it a shot, see if you make it through. Because it's probably, I don't know, it might be 35, 40 minutes. I wanted to read, I'm going to read this first, actually. There were 3 residents of Sitka that wrote a letter condemning me in the most, what's the word? Condemnatory way, I guess, that was possible. And I thought that what they engaged in was argument by assertion. Basically, they didn't substantiate anything from what I wrote, which was quite lengthy, to say, well, here's how this guy is anti-Semitic. I mean, there's blood libel, there's anti-Semitic propaganda, Ritchie's evidence of anti-Semitism. They talked about the poison well of anti-Semitism from which I draw, things like that. And I don't feel that I'm anti-Semitic in the slightest, but I am anti-Zionist. And the point that they're not willing to concede, in fact, they try to refute it by asserting it, not by proving it, is they say that, being anti-Zionist just means that it's evidence of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, So I'm going to read their letter first so you get a sense of it, and then you can judge for yourself after I read my piece, if you're willing to listen to it. And again, it's a big ask. I mean, pack a lunch, right? Put it on in the background. You don't have to look at me because I'm, again, not going to be doing anything interesting. But you can decide for yourself. Do you think this is anti-Semitic, or do you think this is legitimate criticism of Israel and an accurate assessment of where we find ourselves in America today in the year of our Lord 2026? So I think that it's worth exploring this, and if you're willing, if you get anything out of this, apparently likes are the thing. I mean, I'm all new to posting this stuff, just learn how to do it. But if you want to follow, if you want to do a like, what I hope to accomplish, I have very little, I will admit this freely, I have no money, I'm not even accepting it, I'm refusing it. I had somebody try to give me $300 the other day, I just sent it back to him. What I hope to accomplish is to make it to the Final Four, because, again, there will be a debate, and I'd like to be there, and I'd like to be able to drag the living shit out of Nick Begich, who richly deserve it for the 4 things that I cited. And I want to me, this was like trying to demonstrate proof of concept, and I hope this is the case, that people actually care about this issue. Because my hope is that somebody with a more viable chance, and I told this to Bill Hill when I met him, I said, look, if you find that you can get some worms in your bucket because people are animated on this issue, steal my message. By all means, with my blessing. What I'm hoping to establish is that people actually give a shit about this, and that they actually do notice what's going on, and they actually do care. I hope to God that's true. So let me read the vilification of me, and then I'll read what I wrote, and you can judge for yourself. You can determine who's talking out their arse and who isn't. So the letter to the editor is labeled advertisement, which is accurate. It's an advertisement because I paid for it. I was offered 1,000 words to write about the topic, and I found I could not do justice to what I wanted to say in that amount of words. And so I just paid for it. I did that before. I did that with fish politics back when the troll industry, not trawlers, by the way, trollers, they are hook and line fishermen. They catch their fish one at a time. There's an old saying that trawlers are rich folks that feed poor folks, and trollers are poor folks that feed rich folks. So I am a troller. That's what kind of commercial fisherman I am. But we were being sued by this outfit that was claiming something that wasn't true. And I did the same thing. And I wrote a very long article. I just paid for it myself because I guess I'm either a fool or I care, or maybe both. So it says advertisement. It says, Dear Editor, We are writing in response to the advertisement that ran on Friday, June 12th, 2026. The advertisement, paid for by David Ritchie, candidate for Alaska's U.S. House of Representatives seat, is a disturbing litany of anti-Semitic propaganda under the guise of legitimately, air quotes, educating the reader on what is really going on in Washington. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred known to human history, insidious and mutating over the millennia to disguise itself as righteousness. Anti-Semitism encompasses hatred of Jews, this is a quote, encompasses hatred of Jews on the basis of their existence as human beings, and envisions Jews as both excessively powerful and weak. It's from the Anti-Defamation League in 2026, end quote. Ritchie dips deeply from this poisoned well, itself a trope, by the way, while attempting to deny his anti-Semitism by repeating that he is merely anti-Zionist. Anti-Zionism is not, as Ritchie would have you believe, legitimate criticism of Israel. Oh, okay. We'll see about that. Zionism is the millennial-old movement for Jewish self-determination, statehood, and security. We can and do take issue with the current Israeli administration while still upholding the right for Israel to securely exist as the Jewish homeland. Ritchie's obsession with Israel and the fantastical conspiracy theories and irreconcilable claims without actual scholarly evidence reveals his so-called anti-Zionism as the latest form of classic hatred of Jews and Israel. Ritchie's treatise contains all the classic anti-Semitic tropes repackaged as legitimate political discourse: blood libels and dehumanization, conspiracy and control, collective guilt, Holocaust inversion, and irrational double standards for Israel. Anti-Semitism is not just a Jewish problem, it is a barometer on the health of our fragile democracy. As anti-Semitic incidents are exploding to historically high levels nationally and globally, it is incumbent upon all of us to speak out when we witness this ancient and cancerous hate. We encourage you to learn how you can help interrupt anti-Semitism by going to #TranslateHate. And it's signed by Gretchen Clark, David Avraham Wallach, who's the tribal lawyer for the Sitka tribe, and Thomas Clark of Sitka. And the one thing I'd say before I start reading my piece is that this is what's called argument by assertion. And the only reason I mentioned that David Avraham Wallach is a lawyer is he's professionally trained and he knows how weak and lazy and dishonest argument by assertion is. Because what you'll notice in what I just read is it doesn't cite anything I wrote. It doesn't give you any examples of blood libel. It doesn't give you any examples specifically of anti-Semitic propaganda. He's just saying, this is what it is. I say it's that. So shut up, anti-Semite. That's what this is doing. And it's insulting because it's so weak and it's so lazy. And I met with David Avraham Wallach. I reached out to him immediately after his letter appeared, and I didn't hear back for probably a couple weeks, I guess. And it was just before the King opener, and I was heading out, and I almost lost reception. I'm almost to Bjorka Island, going to go out kingfishing. And we arranged that when I got back from kingfishing, we'd meet, and then he had to travel and so forth. Anyway, today is Monday the 27th, and we met on Friday, whatever that date was. And we had a discussion, and he didn't bring up the letter. I felt it incumbent upon me to say that that's what that was argument by assertion. And if you want to, call me quite objectionable names, go for it. But show your work, because I think it's, it just ain't cool to call somebody a bunch of really objectionable names without having substantiated your case. So he had said he'd get back to me, and I haven't heard back. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's kind of the preamble to all of this. So this is what I wrote. And again, there's going to be, I hope to God I figured out how to do this, but there should be a link in the description below to this. So you should be able to read it. And I would recommend a tablet or computer or something larger because the print would be small. But it's quite lengthy, and I was going to serialize it, but I'm no Charles Dickens, so I thought I'd just do it. The big thing I want to do is get the link out there, because I'd like to get wider circulation for the argument. Because I expected this kind of letter. I really did. But what was interesting, one last point, is that the editor of the paper, and I just adore her, her name's Sandy Paulson. She made an executive decision that she wasn't going to write anything more about this issue because people got so irrational or amped up or whatever the rationale was. But she just didn't want to have the smoke anymore. And so she wouldn't let me write my response. And so this letter that the three wrote had to stand in the public. I don't quail from being called those names, but I don't like the not having the opportunity to point out that none of this that was claimed was substantiated. But anyway, so the article, again, it appeared in June 12th, and a lot's changed in that span of time, thank God, actually, because I think what's happened is the Democrats, a fair number of them, have found their voice. And Thomas Massey, bless him, in Kentucky, who got voted out because the Israeli lobbies, AIPAC and all their shell packs and hidden packs and so forth, spent $32 million in Kentucky in this just nowhere district simply because Thomas Massey was critical of Israel. And the guy they elected by 10 points, apparently, is this complete non-entity. The only thing he's known for is, one, he wants to reinstitute the military draft. And the second thing is he's a faithful spaniel for Israel. So Israel got what they wanted, right? And they were crowing about it. AIPAC was crowing about it upon the victory. I think his name was Ed Gallrein. So this is meddling in elections. This is meddling in legislation. It's meddling in governance. This is a problem, and people are noticing. And you don't see it on cable news much, and you don't see it on mainstream, like on broadcast networks, you know what I mean? In the mainstream media, you don't see it. And there's a reason for that. And let me just tell you a quick anecdote about that. I was watching a clip from Tucker Carlson, and he was talking about an incident that happened in the early 2000s. He was on a plane with James Carville. Now, Tucker's a guy of the right, and James Carville is a liberal lion from way back in the Clinton years, right? So the left and the right, they're sitting there talking, and Tucker was talking about something, and this is in the early 2000s, right? He was saying something that was mildly critical of Israel. And James Carville's reaction, according to Tucker Carlson, as the story goes, is, "Do you want your kids to go to college?" And Tucker says he was taken aback, and he's like, what do you mean? He said, "Well, do you want your kids to go to college? Because if you do, you back off of that, And, okay, I mean, if that's true, and I don't know if it is, but that kind of proves the point, it's representative of the environment in which mainstream media people live, because a lot of people get fired if they criticize Israel, and that's happened many times, and a lot of political leaders. And one of the things about the Massey thing was that Massey just became such big news because this is the first time it really happened on the right, There's a lot of left scalps that have been left, over because they spoke critically of Israel and they were targeted and removed from office. And so this has been going on for a long time, and there's a lot of money. And people are very reticent to speak out about it, partly because there's financial incentives for not doing it, and part of it is because there are draconian countermeasures for people that say, well, I'm going to do it, and then they suffer the consequences. So anyway, the article, June 12th, 2026, and the title was, "End the United States' Special Relationship with Israel Now." There's a little introduction of myself, and David Ritchie, who doesn't own a comb, no lie told there, is a commercial fisherman based in Sitka, Alaska. He's running as a nonpartisan candidate for the United States House of Representatives seat held by Nick Begich. And I do want to say a quick word about the nonpartisan of that. I chose to run as a nonpartisan because I wanted to be able to speak bluntly and directly about both parties. I think that the Republican Party is like just a bunch of kept men and women, except for Thomas Massey. It's really hard to find anybody of any integrity at all. And the Democratic Party's full of corporatist Democrats. And so I feel that there are more people of goodwill trying to do good things, but money is such an overwhelming obstacle for so many people. And the corporate interests, Israeli lobby, big pharma, stuff like that. It just makes it more difficult for people to show leadership, to say nothing of courage. And so I chose to run as a nonpartisan because I wanted to be able to say Joe Biden permitted, condoned, couldn't stop, I don't know what it was, a genocide in Israel. I think the reason that Kamala Harris lost to Trump is because she said, well, I wouldn't do anything different than what Joe did, right? Well, oh, really? Really? I think that a lot of people were pretty demoralized by that. You assume your base is going to come out for you, and at a certain point they say, well, go fuck yourself, and rightly so. And so I think that I wanted to be able to say where it was appropriate that, Trump's off the rails, the war in Iran is completely pointless and majorly counterproductive. So I want to be able to criticize those things and the close association with Israel that's just so baleful for America. But I also wanted to do the same thing where it was warranted with Democrats. There's a weird dynamic where I think what people do is they pretend. No, they don't pretend. They fear hurting their own side by criticizing it. And I think that when you tolerate and defend awful behavior, you get more awful behavior. So I just don't want to be a part of that at all, And so I want to be able to speak freely, and that's why I'm running as a nonpartisan for what it's worth. So the primary date for this race is Tuesday, August 18th. You may only vote for one candidate in the primary, and I ask for your vote. The top 4 vote getters from that primary move on as candidates in the ranked choice voting in the November election. A candidate meetup will be held for David Ritchie at the Mean Queen on Tuesday, 6/16 from 6 to 7 p.m. Stop by and let's talk. So again, this is from more than a month and a half ago, but I think it's kind of proving to be quite prescient because, and it certainly didn't happen because of my article, but I think that a lot of people have started to find their voice, certainly in American discourse and to a certain extent in American politics. And I'm really happy to see that. And I hope that trend continues. The article has headers and then, the text describing what the header denotes. And so when I do the header, I'll make a pause so you can tell that it's a header, and then I'll just read. So the first header reads, Wade, can a U.S. politician say that? The United States must end its special relationship with Israel immediately. Israel has proven repeatedly over the course of a great many years to be a faithless ally that offers the U.S. little but counterproductive wars that we fight on Israel's behalf. Wars fought with our money and our troops, as well as diplomatic isolation and treacherous and relentless spying on the United States. The Pentagon just increased its threat level of Israeli espionage upon the U.S. to critical. For historical antecedents, look up Jonathan Pollard. He's a U.S. traitor. He was in jail, got pardoned by Obama, and then, no, he didn't get pardoned. He got, what did they call that when they did? He got paroled by Obama, and then Trump removed the conditions of parole so that he could go back to Israel to a hero's welcome, met on the tarmac by none other than Bibi Netanyahu, by the way. So he stole nuclear secrets and gave them to the Israelis, and they used that for trade, who gave them to the Russians so that they could then get some Jewish emigres in from Russia, is how that all dirty deal went down. So U.S. traitor but Israeli hero, Jonathan Pollard, or Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell of Epstein Files fame. Illustrative of just how far gone our worthless politicians are, and for the love of God, can someone please ask Nick, vote for war? Begich, his take on this, but right now, in the House and the Senate, Congress critters are falling all over themselves to give away the keys to the kingdom by merging the United States and Israeli military capabilities in the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. If you're the Israeli government, hey, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free, right? Not just no, hell no. But wait, there's more. The Israeli lobby here in the United States sows societal division,
foments threats to free speech, obsessively meddles in our legislation and our governance and our elections without being compelled to register as a foreign agent, unlike every other country in the world. Ask yourself why that is. And Israel's aggressively and legally bribing our politicians, both sides, R&D, to claim fealty and obeisance to Israeli interests, because the Supreme Court in its infinite majesty thinks that's A-OK. Citizens United. But probably the single biggest misconception that many have about our essential ally is that Israel provides us with intelligence that is crucial to our survival as a country. Oh? Israel's actual record over the years is a shameful one of providing deliberately bad intel as a prod for America fighting wars for Israel. Think WMD in Iraq, and the ease with which the Israelis promised regime change could be effected there. The ghost of Donald Rumsfeld is probably still haunting the area around Tikrit and Baghdad and east and west and south and north somewhat. You remember that? Searching in vain for those missing WMDs. Or more recently, Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu was physically present in the Situation Room on the eve of war with Iran and somehow persuaded President Trump, contra everyone else there, that war with Iran would be easy and quick, that the Strait of Hormuz would not be closed by the Iranians, and that the war would result in swift regime change. All of which is demonstrably wrong, and it was known to be wrong in real time by those present. By the U.S. military and intelligence officials who were present, and was contrary to the counsel and threat assessments of all 18 of the alphabet agencies in our U.S. intelligence community. But Bibi said different, so Trump gave America what Bibi wanted. Notice the pattern? $1 billion here, $1 trillion there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. What America gets from Israel as an ally is unremitting grief at home and abroad, and a money-sucking sponge from our treasury to the tune of $320 billion in aid to Israel over the course of our special relationship history. Not counting the $30 billion plus America has additionally committed to Israel since the onset of Israel's genocide in Palestine. That's supplemental money. Or the $70 billion our fair land has committed so far in our allied war with Israel against Iran. Not to mention the $8 to $10 trillion the United States has spent fighting unnecessary wars and effecting regime change over the last 25-odd years across the Middle East and North Africa, largely on behalf of Israel. Look at a map. All of these countries are Israel's neighbors and or countries with which Israel cannot or will not get along with because they don't play well with others. What America gets from Israel is a truly profound loss of blood and treasure and sovereignty. Enough. Myths versus reality. Consider 4 points. There's no greater impediment to peace in the world and to prosperity in America than present-day Israel, partly due to Israel's belligerent expansionist militarism toward its neighbors in the Middle East, and partly due to its generational cruelty meted out to the Amalek, as the Israelis so biblically call the Palestinians to invoke God-sanctioned genocide in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, within its own borders. Point 2. There's no greater causative force inspiring harmful anti-Semitism in the world than the shameful conduct of the Zionist State of Israel and its Israel First Zionist supporters in America, Jewish, especially Zionist billionaires, and Christian alike. There's almost more Christian Zionists in this country than there are Jews in the entire world, if that tells you anything. You don't have to be Jewish to be Zionist. There are a great many within our government and within the media, people who are Zionists who ain't Jewish. Quite a lot. So consider that point. Point 3. There's no greater threat to America's First Amendment right to free speech than the hysterical, unjustified victimhood displayed by thin-skinned Zionists who wish to dishonestly equate legitimate criticism of the secular government of Israel with indiscriminate hatred for the practitioners of the Jewish faith. This gaslighting tactic is routinely practiced by Zionists. Anti-Semite is the reflexive and purpose-built slur designed to invalidate all discussion. This weak and lazy response is contemptibly dishonest and insulting and chilling to the prospects of a free American citizenry, as are all the rash and misguided laws being advanced designed to protect Jewish persons by making criticism of Israel and Zionism prima facie evidence of anti-Semitism. It is not. And such laws do a profound disservice to Jewish American persons by making them targets for reactionary anger by unfairly singling them out. This is the point that I tried to make to the head lawyer for the Sitka Tribe of Alaska, David Avraham Volek. You have to ask yourself, are you helping or are you hurting? Because if you accuse people of being anti-Semitic and they're criticizing Israel and you're saying that that's being anti-Zionist and that's anti-Semitic, that's just not so. It's just absolutely not so. And that's why I'm making this point that the conduct of Israel and Zionists' fellow travelers throughout the world, but especially in America, are making anti-Semitism infinitely worse. They are not helping. And it would be nice if they addressed criticism instead of just launching into "you're an anti-Semite, shut up," right? That's the problem that a lot of people have. So, point 4, and we hear a lot about Iran being the largest, quote, state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Now, let me be clear. I hold no brief at all for Iran. Iran definitely engages in terrorism. But, and by orders of magnitude, there is no larger, quote, state sponsor of terrorism in the world today than the ethno-nationalist, expansionist, apartheid state of Israel. And friends, it's not even remotely close. Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who. Looking outside its ever-expanding borders, since the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack, but before the Allied war in Iran starting on February 28th, 2026, Israel conducted military strikes on several countries in the Middle East, its neighbors. Qatar, airstrikes on the capital Doha, targeting Hamas's political leadership. Yemen, airstrikes on Houthi-controlled ports and energy infrastructure. Iran, airstrikes in June of 25 during the prelude to the coming war, killing top political and military leaders, nuclear scientists, and many civilians. Syria, airstrikes on military sites and airports. And Lebanon, cross-border strikes and ground operations. They've since invaded Lebanon, by the way. They're apparently washing their hands of Iran. That's our problem now. They got to focus on Lebanon, right? That's what being a special ally is all about. You know, you fight my war for me and I get to do what I want. So diplomacy ain't in the Israeli toolbox and they've been hella busy. A pariah? Who? Me? Looking inward during that same span, Israel conducted a genocide in Palestine, killing at least 70,000 humans, as admitted by the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, with an 83% civilian kill ratio. Not counting, of course, the thousands upon thousands still buried under the charnel house of rubble created by Israel's wasteland of bombardment. Israel often justifies its civilian kill ratio of 83% in Gaza by saying that Hamas is using civilians as, quote, human shields. Discounting the validity of the claim for the moment, it neither explains nor justifies Israel's wildly disproportionate response of bombing hospitals, double-tap bombings to kill the rescuers, and universities and sanitation plants and religious sites and residential dwellings with indiscriminate indifference as to whether innocents get killed, Arab or Christian. Tell me exactly how much you do not care with your charming human shield argument. By way of analogy, I'd like to demonstrate how and why this Israeli, quote, human shield claim is representative of a debased humanity. Let's use an example that's close to home, say of a school shooter. Some nutcase with a gun invades a school, clearly a form of terrorism. Do American authorities routinely decide, uh-oh, there's a terrorist with a gun in a school packed with hundreds, maybe thousands of innocent children. Oh, wait, I know. Let's drop a 2,000-pound bomb on the school. That'll fix him. No, that's not what we do. Thank God. I guess I can swear because it's my own goddamn channel, but I say effing in the paper to get away with it, but fucking who gave over $1 billion to Hamas? And were you aware that the Israeli government, via Bibi Netanyahu personally, had been funding Hamas, its sworn enemy, for nearly a decade prior to the October 7th, 2023 attack, to the tune of over $1 billion, estimates as high as $1.4 billion. Every month via Qatar, which demanded that Bibi put his wishes in writing because they know how Bibi rolls, because he lies about a great many things. So Qatar demands Bibi put his wishes in writing that he, the leader of Israel, sworn enemy Hamas, wants to fund Hamas. Okay, it's in writing. You can look it up. He's got some chutzpah, Bibi Netanyahu, in Israel. So Bibi sent suitcases full of cash, look it up, starting at $15 million per month and rising to a high of $30 to $35 million per month. Are you picking me up? Point being, Israel and Bibi do not want peace with the Palestinians, and they emphatically do not want an independent Palestine. In fact, Bibi was quite open about it. He talked with reporters and told them his reasoning. To avoid a two-state solution, it was necessary for Bibi to riskily and cynically fund Hamas, a radical terrorist organization, because doing so would weaken the bargaining power and unity of the more moderate Palestinian Liberation Organization. No partner to work with, no two-state solution. See how that works? And then it all blew up in everyone's face on October 7th, 2023. Once more with feeling, anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. And it shouldn't have to be said, but it does, because Zionists use this trope all the time to shut down debate. Being anti-Zionist is not remotely the same thing as being anti-Semitic. Zionism is a political ideology, and Judaism is a religious faith. Is there a Venn diagram overlap between Zionists and some Jews? Of course, as there is between Zionists and some Christians. For example, some 10 million Christian Zionists call our fair land home. But Jewish people are in no way a monolith, and there are lots of American Jews who have very strong moral objections to Israel's Zionist policies, as evidenced most explicitly, but not solely, by the Hasidic Jews of New York City, who are the OG dissenters against Zionism. They've been out protesting in the street for 25 years, which they consider to be both, meaning Zionism, which they consider to be both racist and an offense to God. A great many secular and religious Jews feel that Zionist objectives are harmful to Arabs and to Jews. So when Israel deliberately conflates these two realities, meaning portraying Zionists as speaking for all Jews, and it hides behind the skirts of Judaism, does Israel, what Israel is doing is deflecting criticism away from an indictment of Zionism by attempting to make all Jewish persons, often unwillingly, especially in America and all around the world in places not named Israel, complicit with, accountable for, and defenders of the transparent injustices of Zionism. That ain't fair, or honest, or even true, but that's how Israel rules, because the Zionist honey badger just don't care. USS Liberty. How Israel rules. How U.S. presidents respond. Since at least the era of Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, our politicians on both sides, R and D, have been deceiving American citizens for generations about, quote, the essential nature of our special ally, Israel. Look up the nearly hour-long attack on the USS Liberty by Israeli fighter planes, torpedo boats, and helicopters. We're talking a 3-stage coordinated sustained attack that nearly lasted an hour is what we're talking about here. So just keep that in mind. So during the Six-Day War on June 8th, 1967, 34 U.S. sailors were killed in that Israeli attack, and 171 were wounded, all quite deliberately by Israel. Unless you are a Zionist and happen to believe that the Israeli government and the IDF military can make the exact same unconscionable mistake for nearly an hour during a sustained, coordinated assault on an obviously American military ship flying a giant American flag in broad daylight on a clear sky day, all while jamming the American vessel's comms and trying to sink it, even strafing the lifeboats that were launched into the water. After the attack, LBJ angrily imposed a muzzle on his own state and defense departments. LBJ put a muzzle on his own state and defense departments, both of which were, rightly, livid and blistering with condemnation for the act and wanted redress, meaning heads, from the Israelis, but were shut down. Shut down by none other than LBJ, then President of these United States of America. Now, ask yourself, why would LBJ do that? I mean, really, just sit with that question for a moment. If you're not aware of this, just sit with that question. Why would LBJ muzzle his own State Department and his own Defense Department to quell criticism of Israel? Why would he do that in this attack on American sailors, killing 34 and wounding 171? You can think of a lot of reasons, but ain't none of them good, is the point here. Essential, maybe, but to whom exactly? So the oft-repeated claim is that Israel is America's essential ally, right? Essential how? To whom? And why? Israel is a tiny, insignificant country, geopolitically speaking. It's the size of New Jersey, with 10 million people, though with a significantly smaller GDP than New Jersey. It has zero strategic advantage or meaningful resources to offer the United States. And likewise, the mainstream media has acted as a censorious gatekeeper to maintain and enforce this generational deceit about the primacy and importance of essential Israel. There's a deeply disturbing code of omerta surrounding criticism of Israel in both politics and in the mainstream media, and it is an unhelpful and toxic dynamic for our country. The rules. Shut up, anti-Semite! As a free American citizen, for example, ever notice the irony of how you can freely criticize President Trump or Biden or Obama or Bush or Clinton all you want, but in the political realm and in legacy media, unlike online media, if you legitimately and fairly criticize the Israeli government and its Zionist objectives, you get targeted by the Israeli lobby for removal from office. Thomas Massie is but the latest casualty, but the left is littered with the scalps of those who spoke out about Israel and were targeted, often effectively, for removal from office by the Israeli lobby. Or in the legacy media, you get calumnied as an anti-Semite and fired. Everyone knows the rules, which is precisely why politicians on both sides and mainstream media figures so seldom speak to the corrosive reality of excessive Israeli influence over American governance. While Biden-Harris slept. Consider, President Trump famously campaigned in 24 on no new wars. Remember that? Now, compare Trump's pledge for no new wars to Kamala Harris, who said she wouldn't do anything differently than self-proclaimed Zionist Joe Biden, who conducted airstrikes against, not in order, but in total, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, and Afghanistan, to say nothing of the disastrously botched Afghan withdrawal, and Biden allowed Israel to openly commit a barbaric genocide in Palestine right in front of God and everybody, all funded by American taxpayer dollars. Biden did not, or worse, could not, put a leash on Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. Why? Did Biden condone the genocide, or was he powerless to stop it? Either way, the Israeli... Oh, I'm fucking this up. Sorry. I lost my place. Either way, the Israeli tail is wagging the American dog here, friends. Recall also in 2016 when he first ran, Trump made his bones as a man of the people, in large part because he ridiculed Jeb Bush, then a candidate for president, for his brother George's stupid war in Iraq, which it was. Thank you. Hear, hear. Trump's disgust and scorn for catastrophic American wars of choice resonated with a great many voters, partly because it was emphatically true, and partly because no Republican politician had been willing to admit it till Trump. America first betrayed for Israel? Now skip to February 2026. In the very first year of his second term in office, what did Mr. Drain the Swamp do? Trump spun 180 degrees and betrayed his own America First voters and the anti-war left, which are unified on this point, and he chose war with Iran instead. Forget about kept men in Congress like Nick Begich, who voted for war. The vast majority of the American people emphatically did not want war with Iran. And what was Trump's and Marco Rubio's immediate explanation for why they don't care what y'all think? Israel made us do it. Trump deliberately chose Israel over America. Despite the political cost Trump knew he'd incur for his betrayal, Trump chose to serve Israel over American security and our vital interests. Now, think about what that means, friends. Sit with that one for a moment, too. Presidential thrall to Israel, from LBJ to Trump. Now ask yourself, whether you love or loathe Trump, why does an American president betray his base voters and the majority of the country who are opposed to this unnecessary and pointless war that only ardent Zionists and chicken hawk, war hawk neocons wanted on behalf of and at the behest of Israel? Does that not give you pause? Who precisely runs our country? Because it don't appear that it's Trump or Biden or any U.S. president. I'm not your monkey. Wait. Yes, I am. Trump is presently ridiculing and humiliating himself. I said the wrong word. Trump is presently humiliating himself and our country daily because he's trapped himself in a war of choice, seeking to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb it does not possess, seeking to secure nuclear dust Trump cannot obtain. Trump cannot invade Iran with ground troops because those ground troops would be annihilated en masse by ballistic missiles. That's why all this talk about Karg Island is just insanity. I mean, sitting ducks. That's what they'd be. Sitting ducks. Their ballistic missiles aren't degraded. Our Defender missiles are being, apparently they're almost exhausted. All of this talk of ground troops, which are American, of course. They're not going to be Israeli ground troops, by the way. It's just insanity. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get too sidetracked if I go off on it. So Trump cannot invade Iran with ground troops because those ground troops would be annihilated en masse by ballistic missiles, which everyone knew before the war even started. He's failing to protect military bases surrounding the Persian Gulf, whose infrastructure has been destroyed to the tune of billions of dollars. And he's demonstrating to our Arab allies and allies all over the world that we cannot protect them. So our word ain't worth much these days, and he's squandering $70 billion. This is over a month and a half ago. I have no idea. I should have looked it up, but it was $70 billion a month and a half ago. He's squandering $70 billion and counting and risking economic ruin for Israel, for Zionists. U.S. economic house of cards. America is already massively in debt, $39 trillion and counting. And now we're just printing more money and hoping the U.S. petrodollar is not supplanted by the Chinese yuan, thereby crashing our economy with a global flight of petrodollars from American Treasury securities that props up the entire house of cards. Ensnared in a trap of his own making, Trump is alternately dithering and lashing out and cajoling in alarming ways, all while he is buying time by cynically depleting the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserves, SPR, to subsidize global energy costs due to disrupted flows in the Persian Gulf, which according to Fortune magazine, our SPR is in danger of, quote, emergency supply cushions hitting operational minimums in a matter of weeks. This rating of the SPR is the only reason gas prices are not already at $8 or $9 per gallon, in case you were wondering. So yes, depending upon how Trump handles the mess he has created, it could all get much, much worse very, very quickly. Your erratic behavior, not reassuring, sir. And Trump is flailing. He's attempting, friends, to reopen a blocked and strategically vital strait that was already open for commerce before the war, just so that the anxious world can return to the exact same conditions, at best, in the Strait of Hormuz that prevailed prior to America and Israel ever starting this self-defeating war. Trump's options are few and his threats are empty, and it just makes Israel's continual sabotage and harassment and insolence toward Trump in trying to compel him to continue waging this pointless war with Iran for Israel's selfish benefit even more insulting and dangerous for everyone. And that part's just gotten worse. I mean, it's just humiliating at this point. It's absolutely incredible. I remember, I want to stop here just because I want to observe a point, is that in my lifetime, and I'm unaware if this has ever happened, but I was actually encouraged. I mean, it's awful because it shows what a disaster the war was, and essentially the MOU, that was signed and lasted like 20 minutes because Israel broke the ceasefire and started attacking Lebanon and killing more people. I guess it's up to 4,000 in Lebanon at this point, and entire cities leveled, and that's how the Israeli honey badger rolls. They just don't care, right? But I was actually kind of wanted to say something, but I didn't know how to make a YouTube video at the time because I wanted to say, good on you, man. I mean, there's not a lot to agree with on Trump these days, but I don't most of the time what people do is what Trump's actually doing right now. So I don't know if it was all a smoke screen or something to buy time, or whether there was ever any chance that this was going to go through. But the MOU was an admission that we'd lost the war. He could brag that we won, and say whatever he wanted. I didn't give a shit, frankly, if we just get the fuck out of Iran, because it's just absolutely pointless, this war. And the economic ruination for not just Alaska, but our country, the entire world. This shit can go sideways really, really quickly. And we're playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette right now. And it's like having 4 cartridges in a 6-round revolver, So it's not... I was initially encouraged and hopeful that we might be able to get out of this thing without too bad of a cost, I think what this conflict shows, and I think what most of the conflicts that we've did on behalf of Israel and or the neocons or the defense industry or whoever the hell's behind all the whole thing. I mean, but there's a lot of vested interest in war, obviously. And there ain't a lot of benefit for anybody that's a regular American. In fact, there's no benefit to all these wars. And I don't like admitting this as an American, but it's true. Since World War II, we've had all these engagements. We haven't won any of them. Some of them we lost quite embarrassingly, And it might be the kind of thing that would make you stop and pause and think, well, maybe there's a better way than trying to effect regime change, for instance, or trying to bomb somebody into better behavior. And I was initially encouraged, and of course all that went to shit. So I hope to God something happens, and I hope some sanity prevails here. But it's absolutely fucking crazy what's going on that this is allowed to continue. And you get people that are just still goading him. The Israeli lobby is still goading him, and all the chicken hawk war hawks whose kids never fight in these fucking wars. Those people are all talking about what a fucking coward Trump is. And I'm just so sick of all of it. It's just... One of the things, too, I wanted to observe, and one of the other reasons I ran as a nonpartisan, is guys like Chuck fucking Schumer, because fuck that guy.
I remember in June of 25 when we were bombing the living shit out of Iran and killing their nuclear scientists and killing civilians and killing their leaders and everybody else, right? And Israel joined us on that one too. So this is a year before the war in June of 25 when we're bombing the living shit out of Iran. And Chuck Schumer's out there before this happens calling Trump Taco Trump. Well, Trump, that means Trump always chickens out. I'm thinking to myself, why would you do that, my guy? And I think one of the reasons why you might do that is Chuck Schumer's big Zionist, big Israel supporter, and so forth. And so if you want a war, which I believe Chuck Schumer did, if you want a war with Iran, but you don't want a D to have his name behind it, and because Bibi's been trying to get any president to do this for the last 30 fucking years, right? And so Trump was the first one that either got pressured, blackmailed, or was foolish. I don't know what it was. He has agency. He could have did different. It's not like Bibi's like got him hypnotized. I don't think, but pretty sure not. But so Trump has agency, but you know he did shit that doesn't make any sense at all. And no American president has been foolish enough to do this. Iran's a real country with a real military, and they have very forbidding geography. And you're just everybody knew. You're not going to be able to affect regime change. They're going to rally around the flag because that's what people do. It's whether it's in America or it's in Iran. It's what people do. And they have sufficient military and they have such forbidding geography that you're not going to be able to occupy them. You're not going to be able to take the oil. None of this shit's happening, you know? And it's like we're run by children or something. Because it's like, oh yeah, well, let's try that, you know? So that's where I wanted to go with that is like, again, as a nonpartisan, is I wanted to be able to say things like Chuck Schumer absolutely should not be the leader for the Democratic Party, and I hope to God he's replaced. Whether minority leader if the Democrats don't win the midterms, or as majority leader, even worse, you know. So he picks really bad Senate candidates, and a lot of times he vets them according to their fealty to Israel and stuff. And the whole Taco Trump thing, you know, unless you want a fucking war, which I think he wanted. He was hoping Trump was foolish enough or blackmailed enough or whatever it was to do this ridiculous and pointless and counterproductive war. And to me, that's just disgusting behavior because it's so fucking cynical is what it is. What it's saying is, oh, yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice what's going to happen in this country and in my own state and all over the world because I really want Israel to sleep well at night because, like, every threat in the region we bomb the living shit out of, you know? And we've just defused all the threats, you know, except for asymmetrical terrorist people like Hezbollah, which was started in 1982 because Israel invaded the fucking country, by the way. So it's not a brief for Hezbollah either. I'm not fucking holding out for these people. I'm sorry, I'm getting really upset. I'll get back to reading. But I'm not holding a brief for Hezbollah or any of these radical terrorist organizations. I'm just saying they don't happen in a vacuum and they don't come out of nowhere, you know? This is what's called blowback, you know? And one of the things that people are frustrated by is Israel and the Israeli lobby treat it like these things, oh, they just hate Jews. It's irrational Jew hatred. Well, my guy, no, it isn't. You know, they have a legitimate beef with your government. It ain't because you're Jewish. It's because you're acting like a bunch of assholes is the problem. So I hope I can help you out with that. Not you, but I mean the people that are trying to say that being anti-Zionist is somehow anti-Jewish. So anyway, I'll get back on it. Sorry. I wanted to go off on that because that was the biggest reason why I wanted to run as a nonpartisan is to just speak freely, you know. I don't want to be a kept man for the Democratic Party. I would have ran as a Democrat for what it's worth, you know. I voted for Republicans, for sure, but less so, very much less so. I campaigned, I've given money. I gave Mary Peltola $251. I just saw something in the paper, Matt Schultz dropped out, and it was kind of disappointing. And I was, I guess he's worried about Bill Hill not being able to be the guy. And I guess Bill Hill's the bell cow that people are rallying around to defeat Nick Begich. Well, you know, I'm kind of an anybody but Begich guy. And I got like almost no chance of winning the thing. And I got very little chance of making the Final Four. But to me, it's important to address issues honestly. because I think that if you tolerate and defend awful shit, you get more awful shit. I'll just repeat. I think I said that earlier. But so anyway, where do we go here with this? Theoretic, sir, not behaviors. Yes, there we go. So, yeah, it's just so Trump's options are few and his threats are empty, and it just makes Israel's continual sabotage and harassment and insolence toward Trump in trying to compel him to continue waging this pointless war with Iran for Israel's benefit, even more insulting and dangerous for everyone. And meanwhile, the bodies of the 147 little girls killed on the first day of war with Iran hadn't hardly cooled yet, and Israel reckons it's time to start a new war, bombing and invading its neighbors in Lebanon to steal more land, because that's what a special relationship means for Israel, right? You fight my wars for me, and I do whatever the hell I want. Why exactly is this our problem? All of that for Israel. How does that sit with you, friends? Because to me, all of that seems like a massive problem worth discussing and addressing. Almost like it's the single largest problem our country is facing. And wouldn't you know it, virtually no one at all, and this is changing, thank God, but is addressing it squarely. Nick Begich damn sure ain't. That ain't changed. One reason why we can't have nice things and take care of our own here in Alaska is because oily non-entities like Nick Begich go to Congress so as to spend $70 billion in soaring for more war with our special ally, Israel. And he seems to think that's all just swell. But y'all worker bees and trolls don't deserve you no health care, you ingrates. So take your cut, shut the fuck up, and get back to work, plebe. Ain't it sort of grimly funny how every time there's a chance to help Alaskans with health care or avoiding the pain of tariffs, old Nick Begich has them Tyrannosaurus Rex arms when he's reaching for his voting wallet. But as soon as the war rolls around, hoo-hoo, boy, Nick's got him some lanky monkey arms that can really dig deep. Always more money for war in Nick Begich's Alaska. Oh, did I mention? This political arrogance and detachment and cruelty displayed by useless wasters like Nick Begich is precisely why I am running for his office. Enough already. Hidden costs of waging war for Israel. Friends, whether you are left or right, consider there are hidden costs of war that few politicians will tell you. Americans have been paying these hidden costs for the last 25 years as our country has spent $8 to $10 trillion over that span in debt spending, while blowing up countries all over the Middle East and North Africa so that Israel can feel more secure and so that countries opposed to Israeli cruelties and humiliations against the Palestinians shut the hell up about it. Because that's what's really important here, right? Look up Project Clean Break, devised by an Israeli think tank and drafted for Benjamin Netanyahu in 1996, and faithfully adopted by American politicians of both stripes. Original plan was invade and effect regime change in 7 countries in 5 years. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Took more than a couple decades, but Iran was the last domino on that hit list to get attacked by the United States. Discredit where due, America has been nothing if not a dutiful butler for Israeli interests. Also, enough. Wait, I'm paying for this shit? Point being, if Americans had to directly pay for elective regime change wars with higher taxes to fund those wars, taxpayers would revolt. That would be unacceptable, right? Savvy politicians know this. So the workaround, borrow more money, print more money. Easy peasy, right? The razor in the apple. But here's the rub. As more created money gets injected into the system, several harmful things happen to us peeps who ain't rich. The value of your money decreases, inflation occurs, the dollar's devalued, and there is an erosion of wealth, especially for peeps like seniors on a fixed income because your money loses its purchasing power. It's even worse for young peeps who are struggling and ain't got much money to begin with. Times is tough out there and getting tougher.
But as America goes deeper and deeper into debt, our slick politicians who either don't know because they're functionally illiterate on economics, or they just don't care because that's how they roll, like the Israeli honey badger. These polished Pauls who are oily as an undertaker pass the disguised costs of war onto American citizens in the form of higher prices. Hey, just like those sick, slick tariffs Nick Begich proudly voted for like a dutiful spaniel. And also a devalued dollar and a forsaken future. Regular American. What about me? Billionaires. Ha! Sucks to be you. How's that working out for y'all? Well, if you're already wildly rich, it works great. A lot of money to be made, my guy. Insider trading and warmongering or war profiteering is awesome. All the rich kids is doing it. But if you ain't rich, as most of us are not, and you hope to buy a house one day, or launch a business, or get married, or start a family, or are saddled with student debt or healthcare bills, or hope beyond hope to resist the 13-year mass exodus out of Alaska because you love it here, but are considering moving away because costs are so damn high. Hey, sucks to be you, says Nick Begich. Honey Badger Begich don't care. Your money, your purchasing power, is worth less now precisely because, my fellow Alaskans, you and I and everyone is subsidizing vainglorious American imperialist fantasies, and more specifically, because American politicians on both sides are being used willingly, enthusiastically in many cases, by Israel and its Zionist fellow travelers for the Greater Israel Project. Look that one up. The Greater Israel Project. Meaning for the perpetual war and conflicts that aggressively harm... I think I screwed something up. Meaning for perpetual wars and conflicts that aggressively harm American interests while bolstering expansionist Israeli hegemony and its security in the Middle East. And the worst part? Our politicians, including empty-suited mannequins like Nick Begich, are cheerleading on this travesty against the American dream. War, grief, division, loss. Is slobbering obeisance to Israel worth the price to you? Does that work for you? You got a problem with any of that? What do regular Americans get from America's special relationship with Israel and continual wars fought on Israel's behalf, besides an eat shit sandwich? We Americans are being played for suckers by our faithless and venal politicians who are not even selling but are giving away our birthright for a pot of porridge. Telling side note, and this just quick, this is amazing to me because I just learned this fairly recently. Did not know that, but yeah, I'll just read it. Telling side note. Israel has both free education and free health care for 75 years and 30 years running, respectively. Free education for the last 75 years, free health care for the last 30 years. So they enjoy a higher quality of living for their populace as part of their civil contract, thanks largely to the largesse of America. We're subsidizing Israeli healthcare and Israeli education. So aren't you thrilled for the Israelis? You're paying for it, bless your heart. Do you enjoy either of those blessings, free education or free healthcare, here in the home of the free? No, I didn't think so. America, we've been played. Enough already. No more suffering the humiliating spectacle of having the Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Chicken Little Netanyahu visit Washington, D.C. 8 times in the span of a year and a half, like he's somehow an essential part of our American government, when instead he is more akin to an Israeli AIPAC handler for U.S. Presidents Biden and Trump and the near entirety of the United States Congress. Did you know 94% of Congress receives money from the Israeli lobby, which is why Congress flaps its flippers in unison like barking seals and gives standing ovations for Bibi in the hallowed halls of Congress like cream-faced loons. For what? all to badger and pressure the U.S. into first Biden accepting without meaningful opposition a genocide committed by Israel in Palestine that we Americans are forced to be complicit in because we bankrolled it. $30 billion supplemental to do so, by the way. And then, worse, Trump launching a disastrous allied war with Israel against Iran, about which Bibi crowed upon its arrival. I've been dreaming about this, meaning war with Iran, for literally, I'm sorry, I do my bad impression and I screw it up. I've been dreaming about this war with Iran for 40 years. Bibi also lied repeatedly for the last 30 years, literally 30 friggin' years. Look it up. That Iran was, quote, within months or even weeks of building a nuclear bomb. It's all over the internet. You can look at a funny one if you want to. Jon Stewart, I think, sets it to music. It turned like carnival music or something, if I remember right. But for the last 30 fucking years, Bibi Netanyahu's been saying the same fucking thing about Iran being within months or weeks of a nuclear bomb, which wasn't true 30 years ago, and it ain't true today. The outlandishness, the insulting chutzpah of a world leader repeatedly lying for 30 years about an imaginary threat to America in order to secure a war for Israel and for Zionists is emblematic of precisely why our special relationship with Israel is not worth preserving and must end. Excuse me. Bibi is a man and Israel is a government that is debased to its core and cannot be trusted on anything. And it ain't just Bibi. Bibi's opposition opponent, Naftali Bennett, is just as bloodthirsty as Bibi and already is making provocations against Turkey, which is a NATO country, by the way. Israeli society needs some time to reflect without the protective wing of America embracing it. It is in desperate need of a renewal of its degraded humanity. Israel has been barbarized in the unsympathetic way that aggressors and oppressors are barbarized. Their cruelty and viciousness has made them callous and unfeeling and unseeing. Israel is not only unhelpful as an American ally, it is actively harmful to U.S. interests. The record is long and the receipts are many. So what's to do? The God's honest truth, and y'all know it, is shit's fucked up everywhere. It feels like everything is spiraling wildly out of control and getting worse, and no one seems capable of stopping it. It feels like our political system and the media put Team Red and Team Blue into a jar like a bunch of red ants and black ants and then shake the living shit out of that jar just to watch them fight. I'm so very, very tired of it. Because most of the problems that America faces at their root are not about red versus blue, but about the peeps chasing green, meaning money, who are dividing us. If you can, and I say this to everybody, right, left, whatever, I genuinely mean this because I feel like we have been played. I feel like I have been played on a great many issues. And so this is the point I wanted to make to that. If you can, extend your neighbor a little grace, because we all been played, friends. Best to start looking up at the billionaires. I can only tell you my hope and my belief, naive though it may be. I believe that we are us, all of us. Like the Frederick Douglass quote goes, I would unite with anybody to do right and with nobody to do wrong. Over the years, I believe I've been played, and I suspect you have too. So we are gnashing our teeth at our neighbor from our tribal cages rather than working together when we can on matters of mutual benefit. Like stopping the war, investing in America and its people, getting money out of politics, and paramount for me, ending our special relationship with Israel so we can stop fighting wars for Israel and reclaim our American sovereignty. So as a candidate for U.S. House of Representatives running against Nick 6 stacks of cash for Israelis' war, but no dough for Alaskan health care, Begich, I want America to decouple from Israel. Completely. Immediately. No aid of any kind. Not another dollar. End diplomatic relations. Go and God be with you, Israel, or not, just as you please. But Israel is not and should not any longer be America's political, financial, or moral albatross. Tough love. The spoiled child gets worse with indulgence. Friends, the simple fact is, without the protection and indulgence of the United States government and our diplomatic cover and our military aid, the Israeli government is incapable of conducting itself in the belligerent manner that it has for its entire delusionally mythologized history. It is time for Israel to learn how to play nice with its neighbors, to seek peace, not war, and to fend for itself. Call it America first if you're a person of the right, or call it a return to sanity if you're of the left. But America's toxic relationship with Israel needs to end. For America and for Israel. This is paid for by David Ritchie, running for U.S. House of Representatives. So that's it. I don't know if anybody made it through the whole way. But if you did, big ups, man, because, yeah, you must have packed a lunch and prepared for a slog. If you did, I'll just say I genuinely appreciate it. I know it's a very big ask. And I hope if you, I'll just reiterate what I said before, is that the link, I hope to God I figured out how to do this, but it should be in the description so you could share it with whomever you think needs to see it. And I'll be doing shorter versions of the same thing. I wanted to get it out there in its complete form, and I wanted to address the way that I don't want to over blow it or whatever. Because it's like water off a duck's back to me. I'm not anti-Semitic, so them calling me all the slurs in the paper didn't mean anything to me. It's annoying, because I really do not like when people engage in argument by assertion, because people that are not familiar with argumentation sometimes take that as having proven a point, and you haven't, my guy. Maybe you can, but it's generally used by people that want to avoid the argument, and they just want to call names. They go right to ad hominem. Just, I said so, therefore it's true, So anyway, and if you can, I guess all the other crap that I'm really bad at, because I just learned how to do this, and I don't like doing it anyway, but I guess if you agree with the message, or you found this was useful in ways, if you could if you want to subscribe, that would be helpful. All that stuff helps get it out to more people. All I really hope to accomplish is I just mostly want to see people give a shit about this, and I'm hoping that's the case. Maybe they don't, and maybe I'm just pissing in the wind. I don't know. It often feels like that, because it feels like people are apathetic about a lot of things, and they're kind of turned off. And I think there's a baseline of, not knowing the details, because people don't want to delve into it, and I don't blame them. It's a pretty ugly story, I think. But anyway, if you agree that it's an issue, American sovereignty is important to you, for instance, if our American treasury is important to you, if our American elections, if free speech, all these things that are affected by this one issue, if these are important to you, and you feel like this coheres as an argument, and you agree with it, and you do not find it anti-Semitic, if you would share it, that would be great. Should be a link in the description if you'd like, if you subscribe, all the crap that people ask for that I can't remember what I'm supposed to say. But I want to thank you for making it this far if you did. And David Ritchie, running for the United States House of Representatives. The primary date is the 18th. Early voting starts on the 3rd. You only vote for one in the primary. And I would be honored and if you would consider and then ultimately hopefully vote for me, because I'd like to make the final four. I have virtually no chance of winning. I'm quite aware of that. Like I say, I'm not taking donations. I'm just some rando fisherman that's kind of irritated with the whole thing and wants to speak his mind, and hope people care about what he has to talk about. So if you do care, I'd appreciate you sharing. So again, thank you. I'll shut up. I'm starting to repeat myself, but I'll have more things out, and they will be shorter. They have to be. All right, David Ritchie signing out. I wish you well.